Almost everyone going through divorce has trouble with sleep at some point in the process. A lot of what drives this stress is not just the loss of what was, but fear about what the outcome will be. It's really important to get that no matter how bad the person is on the other side, you're not perfect either. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. And we're going to continue this series on navigating divorce. And today we're talking about soothing the storm, navigating divorce with calm and clarity. And what that is about, my friends, is how to manage stress and anxiety during divorce. And I can testify from personal experience that divorce is very stress-producing and anxiety-producing. So we're going to talk today about what's the cause? It's like, duh, it's them, right? Well, it's a little deeper than that, and you know that. And how to manage it so that you feel centered and focused throughout the process. So what makes divorce highly stressful and anxious? You know, studies show that divorce is right up there with death of a loved one and moving. In fact, I think that death of a loved one is number one in terms of stress. And if I'm not mistaken, divorce is number two and moving is number three in terms of identified stressful events. And what you got to understand is the reason why divorce is more stressful than moving is very often when we get divorced, we have to move. Very often when we get divorced, there is a death going on. No, it's not the death of that partner who let you down, though sometimes in your fantasy life it might be. It is the death of your dreams, your shared dreams that you had together. It is the death of the future that you were working towards and living together. It is the death of the being in love dreams, of the intimacy that was created there, of all the closeness and safety. And in that death, you're experiencing the exact opposite. All of a sudden you feel like you're at war, and there's not much more stressful than feeling like you're at war. The stress and anxiety can show up physically in different ways for different people. For some people, it can be as stressful as having their hair start to fall out from the anxiety. For other people, it might be that they overeat. For other people, it might be undereating. Almost everyone going through divorce has trouble with sleep at some point in the process. And a lot of what drives this stress is not just the loss of what was, but fear about what the outcome will be. Fear for ourselves, fear for our children, fear for their well-being, feeling like we're out of control, feeling like the process is out of our hands, not knowing how long it's going to take or what it's going to cost, and being afraid that we'll never recover from it. And even worse, our children will never recover from it. And all that is very emotional, and the emotional drives the physical. And it's really important to understand that these symptoms are going to be present, whether you're the one who filed for divorce or whether you're the one who received the summons. These symptoms are going to be present. There's going to be a disconnect between what we want, what we expect, and how things show up. And that, by definition, causes stress. In fact, you best just get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's what divorce is all about. Now, some people will turn to drugs and alcohol, not food. Some people will become exerciseaholics. Some people will be really sad. Some people will actually slip into clinical depression. And it's important to not mistake authentic sadness for depression. Something I've noticed in this country is that we don't handle sadness very well. And sadness is a normal and natural human feeling, and it's an important part. Grieving the loss of what was is an important part of the process, and letting go of what was is an important step towards creating what you're going to move towards. So it's okay. It's okay to sit Shiva for a week for the loss of your marriage. It's okay. And that sense of mourning, of having a formal mourning period, that's kind of the first step to coping with the anxiety, right? The first thing we need to do is we need to embrace techniques for allowing us to have our grief and then compartmentalize it. Not compartmentalize it so that we hope we're never going to feel it again, which is something that people very often do, but more like compartmentalize it so that we can show up for our kids. Compartmentalize it so we can continue to work. Compartmentalize it so that we can deal with the other person without those emotions overriding our urge, desire, and need to move forward in a way that's best for our children. And then when we have time, after the children are in bed, after we've finished our chores, tasks, work-related efforts, after all those things have been taken care of, then we can begin to allow ourselves to have that grief again. Then we journal. Then we meditate. Then we pray. Prayer, incredibly healing. Prayer is not just a way of reaching out to whatever's outside of you, to a power greater than yourself. It's also a way to allow your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind to speak, right? When we're in prayer, sometimes things come out that we didn't know were there. These are all ways to release what was, to cope with stress, to cope with anxiety. It's really important that we take care of our bodies when we're under stress. So number one, we need to get our sleep back under management, regular sleep at regular hours, but honoring that if we wake up and can't go back to sleep, that's okay. It just means we're processing something, but we want to be regular about it. If we wake up at 4 a.m. and don't go back to bed, that's fine. But the next night, we don't want to go back to bed earlier. We don't want to go to bed later. We want to try to go to bed at the same time and try to get up at the same time and do everything we can. Part of that might be exercising. A great way to handle stress is physical exertion, running, boxing, yoga, deep breathing exercises. These are all ways to prepare ourselves to release emotion and prepare ourselves so that we can truly rest. We want to be careful how we eat. We want to be careful. We want to make sure that we are exercising. We want to make sure that we are expressing our emotions. We want to make sure that we feel intellectually challenged, that we're exercising our minds. We want to make sure that we're tapping all of who we are and continuing to develop all of who we are, even though we feel like we're under stress. Because the truth is, we're not at war. It feels like we're at war, but we're not. And the only way to change that feeling is to act as if you're not at war. What triggers that feeling of being at war? Part of it is our sense of fear. Part of it is our sense of victimization at the hands of another, our powerlessness. Part of it is the court system itself. The court system itself is designed to drive litigation and drive a sense of warfare and drive a sense of combat. Court system is completely a male-created system, and it's all about goal setting and competition. And divorce does not have to be like that. We can look for solutions outside of the court system, like mediation or collaborative divorce, things that are going to help us to lower the anxiety, to lower the conflict, and to get to that understanding that ultimately we're both going to need so that we can focus on what's really important. And what's that? Our kids. These are all ways to cope with the anxiety and the stress. And what are we going to need to do that? We're going to need a network of support. We're going to need an attorney we can trust. Read my book, The Divorce Detox. There's a great chapter in there about finding the right attorney. And all of these things that I'm talking about are in The Divorce Detox. We need maybe a coach, maybe a therapist, maybe a group that we can talk to. We need friends, family, any kind of support that's going to help us to feel connected and a part of and like we're not alone. We need to set realistic expectations. Yeah, realistic expectations. So when we're in that space of blame and hurt, we're like, I'm going to take everything. I'm going to show you. Or if the other person is coming at us that way, we might feel like they're going to take everything. Oh my God. All right. Let's be realistic. All right. The way the court system works is, even though it's aggressive, even though it's loaded with competition, there are boundaries in the court system. Only so much could be given or taken. And as long as we are putting our best foot forward in this process, there's a certain range of possibilities that can occur, period, the end. So we don't need to get stressed out about, oh my God, I'm going to lose my relationship with my kids, unless that's really a possibility. Unless your attorney is telling you, hey, you know that thing that you did? The court's not going to look at that good. That's like, those are the only conditions you really need to worry about that. And basically, the courts feel that it's important to have both parents in the life of their children. Well, maybe you're afraid that the problem is the other parent, that he or she shouldn't be in the lives of the children. And you might even be right, except that children need to know their parents. No matter how good or bad the other parent is, the children need to know them. And so if the parent really is very narcissistic or destructive or toxic in some way, you definitely need the divorce detox, because that's what that book is designed for. It's to help you detox yourself from their toxicity and to help you create strategies to protect your children. This is something that I help people with very explicitly if you're in that situation. Now, if the person on the other side is not so toxic, then your stress levels are going to be a lot lower. It's going to be a lot simpler. So let me tell you a personal story. My first marriage, I was married to a woman who was clinically depressed and had difficulty functioning at home. My friend wants to play with me. She wasn't really present for the children, and that's what drove the divorce. And my fear for them was that they would grow up and not be whole and complete because she couldn't be present for them. And if I'm honest, a part of me kind of hoped that there's a way that I could take them away from her and give them a new mommy, and maybe I could fix them by giving them someone that could fill that hole that she wasn't going to fill for them. But the truth is, there's never any filling that hole. Your mom is your mom, your dad is your dad. And it was vital that they had ongoing contact with her, shortcomings at all. It was vital that I allow her to be there for them in the ways that she could be. And I have never regretted not fighting that fight, of allowing that to unfold in the way that unfolded. And, the thing that I didn't anticipate is that I didn't anticipate that I was toxic in some ways also. I had a son who I had raised, and I was very self-centered and narcissistic at a very formative age of his. And what I never really realized was the impact that I had on him. And so he's recovering from that now. And there was a time there where I wasn't sure how it was going to pan out for him. And I'm happy to say he's happily married and has a beautiful child and is pursuing a happy and fulfilling life. But I think the point of that story is sometimes we think the enemy is on the other side and we don't look at ourselves, and so it's really important that we take our own inventory. As stressed as you might feel, as anxious as you might feel, as under siege as you might feel, it's really important to get that no matter how bad the person is on the other side, you're not perfect either. I'm telling you from my own experience here, we all contribute to the defects of our children. There's what I'm going to call generational dysfunction that's been passed on from generation to generation. And just like the mother of my children, of those two children, had the generational dysfunction of being depressed, truly depressed. I had the generational dysfunction of being very narcissistic and self-centered at a formative time in my son's life, and it almost destroyed him. The programming that I gave him at that age, and I thank God every day that he is growing through that and growing out of that into a richer and fuller life, and that despite that generational curse, he's healthy and well and growing through it. And all my children are healthy and well and growing through it. And so that's the thing, is the more we can let go of our own stress and our own fears, the more we can show up for them and help them through not only the dysfunctional behaviors that they're learning from the other parent, but the ones we gave them too. Right? And you got to get that we're all developing and growing. None of us are perfect. And we pass on dysfunctional behaviors to our children also. In fact, my wife is very fond of saying that giraffes don't marry elephants. And what that means is you can't say the other person is broken and you're whole and complete. You know, whatever level they're on, you are on that level as well because you married them. All right, there's some food for thought. I hope that this has been helpful for you. You know, I do this work because I don't want your children to go through what my brother went through, what my son went through, what I went through as a child, what my daughter went through, what my wife's children went through. I want them to be as whole and complete as possible. I do this work so that parents can build bridges so that their children are shielded from destructive conflict and we can better nurture them. So if you like what you're hearing, share it with other people. Subscribe. If you have questions, reach out to rich@richinrelationship.com, RICH@RICHINRELATIONSHIP.com. Direct message me. Let me know what you think. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you, and have a great day.